Portland is a little conservative, but it's my kind of town. I want to talk to you tonight about my journey. I want to talk to you about how many times I thought I had reached the top of the mountain. How many times that I was absolutely sure that I knew what it was all about. And I want to tell you tonight how many times I've been wrong. I was raised during the Second World War. My parents had the largest dairy farm in the state of Montana. Couldn't hire any help, everybody was in the army. So my mother and father were milking the cows. That meant my brother, 2 sisters, and I were raised by my grandparents. Now, daycare back then is much different than today. Not such thing as swing slides and Lego blocks. Back then, daycare was working in the garden. My first job was working in the garden, my hands in the soil. Birds and trees and living soil. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. I knew I had found the Garden of Eden. I knew what I wanted to do the rest of my life. I wanted to be a farmer. My parents owned a farm. What a piece of cake. 12 years I could go to school. I didn't do anything but party and play football. I never missed a party. I never took a book home. Why would I take a book home? My parents had a farm. I was going to be a farmer. Believe it or not, my senior year, they came to me and they said, Lyman, you're going to graduate. Almost had the big one right there. I couldn't hardly believe it. I was going to graduate, but then I figured it out. They looked at it and they said, you know, if we don't graduate him, he'll probably come back. They weren't going to take a chance like that, so they graduated me. I was thrilled to death. I was going to go home and be a farmer. I quickly learned that that farm was a business to be run. I didn't have the tools to run the farm. I was dumber than a post. I didn't let that bother me any. I immediately went on to the university. I went to Montana State University because I wanted to be an agribusinessman. Now, I couldn't spell agribusiness, but I knew that's what I wanted to do. I went and I learned about herbicides, pesticides, hormones, and medication. I soaked that up like a sponge because I knew you had to get bigger or get out. And I was going to be an agribusinessman. I went home and I told my father, I said, move over, Pop. I'm going to show you how to run this one-horse farm. And he said, what are you going to do? And I said, well, wait until I tell you about all of the herbicides, pesticides, all of the book learning I've got. And he said to me, he said, you're wrong. I said, no, look, I have a piece of paper. I have graduated from Montana State University. I have a degree in agriculture. I knew the answers. And I took that small organic farm, and over a period of years, I turned it into an agribusiness. I can't tell you what a thrill it was the first time I wrote a check for $1 million, and it didn't bounce. I thought I have arrived. I'm the Donald Trump of agriculture. I have rethought that lately. But I'll tell you, I was on the top of my game. I had 20 tractors and 30 trucks. I had more employees than would show up for work. Just when I was on top of the world, I ended up with a wake-up call. I ended up with no feeling from the waist down. I went and saw the doctor, and the doctor said, you have a tumor on your spinal cord. If that tumor is on the inside of the cord, you have less than 1 chance in a million you will ever walk again. 1 chance in a million? Roll out the wheelchair. I'm going to be in it for the rest of my life. And I wondered, what kind of an invalid am I going to be? Am I going to be in a wheelchair feeling sorry for myself, or could I actually make my life amount to something? And if that was it, what was the something? All night before the operation, a lot of things went through my mind. But it was not about walking out of there. It was how I was going to deal with a wife, 5 children, and not be able to walk. They took me in, they operated on me. Sure enough, the tumor was on the inside of the cord. They cut the bone off of the back of my spinal column. Open spinal cord. Not only was a tumor on the inside, it was under the cord. They could not get to the tumor. All they could do was pick a nerve and cut it. Hope the tumor was attached like a fish on a line. They cut one. They took out the tumor the size of my thumb. I woke up after the operation, and the first thing I could remember lying in the bed is the nurse was saying to me, Mr. Lyman, you have to move up in the bed. And I will never forget what I said to her. I said, there will never be a day like that, because I can now feel the foot of the bed. I didn't know whether I would ever walk again. But when I went in for the operation, I couldn't feel the foot of the bed. And when I came out, I could. Believe it or not, I walked out of the hospital with a 1 in a million operation. But I walked out a very different individual than I went in. When I had worked in the garden as a boy, we had birds and trees and living soil. After me coming back from the university with all of my learning, I saw the birds die. I saw the trees die. I saw the soil change. And it was not until I came out of that operation that I was willing to admit I was the problem. I was the one that had caused that. And I gave a lot of thought to it, and I thought, what in the world do I do now? How do I correct what I've caused? I thought, maybe I should become an organic farmer. Maybe I should go back. Maybe my dad was right. I went and saw my banker. And I said to my banker, I said, I need to borrow some money. He said, no problem there. You borrowed a lot of it in the past. Luckily, you paid it back. What do you want it for? I said, I want to become an organic farmer. And he said to me, what? You want me to lend you money, and you're not going to spend it with my other customers, the chemical dealer, the pharmaceutical dealer, the fertilizer dealer? He said, there will never be a day like that. And so, my wife and I, we sold our farm. We started working with other farmers so they wouldn't make the mistakes that we made. And believe it or not, I got a phone call and they said, how would you like to go to Washington, D.C. and work on Capitol Hill? Wow, 535 members of Congress. I just absolutely knew they wanted to do what was right. I went to Washington, D.C. I worked 5 years on Capitol Hill. 5 years on Capitol Hill. And you know what I learned? The most important thing on Capitol Hill was getting reelected. I didn't know all 535 members of Congress, but all of the ones I knew, there were not more than a handful that I would ever let babysit one of my children. Bernie Sanders is one that I would let After 5 years of working on Capitol Hill, I said to my friends, I said, this game is rigged. We are never going to win on Washington, D.C. And they all looked at me and laughed and said, what are you going to do, go talk to the people? I said, yeah. They said, well, lots of luck there. So I started out and I started talking to other people. Now, when I had been in Montana State University, I played football and I weighed over 300 pounds. Washington, D.C., I'm working on Capitol Hill. I haven't seen a scale in a long time that'll tell me what I weigh. I'm walking through the bottom of the House office buildings and they've got a scale where they weigh the mail that the members of Congress send out. Nobody's around. I step up on the scale. Oh, God. I stepped down. I wanted to make sure it was in balance. It was. I stepped up again. Wow. Well over 300 pounds. My blood pressure is sky high. My cholesterol is over 300. I sit down and my nose bleeds. I got a problem. I thought, what in the world am I going to do? And I thought, maybe I ought to become a vegetarian. I'm working for a farm organization. I become a closet vegetarian. I'm on a closet vegetarian diet. I lose some weight. My blood pressure goes down. My cholesterol goes down. My nose quits bleeding. And I thought, wow, you know, if I can do this, being a vegetarian, just think what I could do if I become a vegan. And I can spell vegan. I become a vegan. I lost over 120 pounds. My blood pressure went from sky high to normal. My cholesterol from 300 to 125. I'm telling you what, first time in my life I'm on top of the mountain. I know exactly the cure for all of the ills in the world. All we have to do is turn everybody vegan and we've got it made. Needless to say, was that a very good selling point on Capitol Hill. So I start traveling around. I start talking to groups. Sometimes there was a fairly large group. Sometimes you could easily fit them in a phone booth. But I thought, what it had done for me, I thought I had saved my life by adopting the vegan diet. And it was all about health. I can remember Jeremy Rifkin came to me and he said, how would you like to run the Beyond Beef campaign for me? I said, I don't think you know anything about beef, Jeremy. He said, well, if I leave you alone, will you do it? I said, yeah, I'll do it. So we decided what we would do is that we would put a group of people in front of a McDonald's restaurant. And we would adopt a McDonald's, and when people came there to eat, we would talk to them about a vegan diet. The largest event that had ever been done worldwide was about 300 teams on one day on one issue. We put together over 3,000 teams. We actually had a team in Alaska that was picketing in front of a McDonald's that wasn't even opened yet. They hadn't even finished building it. And guess what? The carpenters got off of the job and joined the picket line. But of all of the days we picked, it was the same one that the jury came in on the riot in California. The press didn't care about McDonald's. It was all about Rodney King. But what I learned was there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of people that are willing to give of themselves to make the world a better place to live. And so what we need to do is look at it. Number one, is the thing that we're looking at important? Man, it's really important for your health. All you had to do was read T. Colin Campbell's book, The China Study. I can remember when I was in the Beyond Beef campaign, T. Colin Campbell came in and sat in my office. He was sitting across from me, and he had his hand holding his cheek up so he could talk to me. I'm a farm boy, I'm pretty plain, and I said to him, I said, T, why in the world do you do that? And he said, well, when I was working in the lab, we were working on a substance known as dioxin. We had no idea how deadly it was. It killed all of the muscles in my face. He said, did you ever have anybody in your family die of cancer? And I said, yes, I had a brother died of Hodgkin's disease. He said, what we used in Vietnam, Agent Orange, was loaded with dioxin. He said, did you use 2,4,5-T? I said, yeah. We used it like it was soda pop. No gloves, no goggles, no protective clothing. My brother, 29 years old, died of Hodgkin's disease. And I looked at it and said, we need to go and share the information with the good people. I mean, 80% of the people today in America are brain dead. They're part of the herd. All they're doing is running nose to tail. And unless you're the lead dog, I'm telling you what, everybody else in the pack is seeing the same thing every time. And so our job is not to educate Joe Sixpack. Look around. He's not here tonight. What we need to do is talk to the people that are still thinking. 80% of the people are part of the herd. They're following. What we need to do is look at the fact that 20% of the people determine where the 80% go. All we have to do is educate 11% of the American people and what we're talking about, and guess what? The 80% will follow. I mean, this is achievable. We can do it. The thinking people in Portland are here tonight. We don't need everybody in Portland. All we need is the people that are thinking. And so, why don't we take and go out and talk to people about the issues? Well, what is the issue? Started out with me, it was health. No doubt about it. I became a vegan because of my health. But I had to admit, my health, what was really important was the animals. And so, when somebody asked me, why did you become a vegan? I said, it's because of the animals. And I thought that was it. And then all of a sudden I looked at it and said, wait a minute. 79% of Americans consider themselves to be environmentalists. Nothing in the world is better for the environment than a vegan diet. And so it started out as health, and then it was the animals, and then all of a sudden, the light came on, and it was the environment. Guess what we're at today? Today we're talking about global climate change. Can you imagine 200 countries around the world came together and agreed that human involvement was changing the climate on planet Earth? Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest minds in the world, just stated 3 days ago that he believed that human population on Earth would probably cease to exist in 100 years. And one of the reasons he stated was global climate change. So we look at this and we've got all of the data we need. You know, we should have no trouble getting somebody that thinks to understanding what the issues are. I can remember I was in England, and when I was in England, the Minister of Education stood up in front of Parliament and said, "We no longer can assure the English people that mad cow disease cannot be transferred from cows to humans." The National Cattlemen's Beef Association said it was the exploding powder keg that was heard around the world. I was in England at the time it happened. I was the only American over there that knew about the issue, and I'm telling you, I got interviewed by everybody you can imagine. Boy, when I came home, I'm telling you what, I was important. I got off of an airplane in New York City. They said over the loudspeaker, "Howard Lyman, there is an important phone call for you." No doubt. I picked up the phone. It was Oprah Winfrey. Oprah said, "I have a few million people to watch my show. I'd like you to come on and talk about mad cow disease. Will you come?" Well, being important, you think I leaped at something like that? I waited a good 4 or 5 seconds before I agreed. She sent me a ticket. I flew into Chicago. I got off the plane. I'm walking down the runway, and here's a guy in a limo driver's hat and a big sign, and the sign says, "Lyman." I said to him, "Can you wait until I find somebody with a camera? I'd like to get pictures of this." He said no. He took me down and they put me in a hotel, and I've never told another audience this, but I got a voucher from Oprah that I could go down in the restaurant in the hotel I was staying in. Rather than eat, I kept the voucher. Next morning, a limo comes, picks me up, takes me, and I meet Oprah for the first time. I'm on the stage. To the right of me is a guy from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. To the left of me is a guy from the University of Maryland. By his own admission, was the most qualified person in North America about mad cow disease, according to him. Anyway, we're sitting on the stage and Oprah comes out. And she basically says to me, "What do you think about this mad cow issue?" And I said, "Well, you know, Oprah, we're taking cows, we're rounding them up, grinding them up, we're turning them into feed. We're not only taking the cows and turning them into cannibals, or carnivores, we're turning them into cannibals." She said, "That just stops me cold. I will never again eat a burger." And I thought, right on. Don't do anything stupid now. My wife told me before I went on the show, she said, Make sure you don't do anything stupid. I'm sitting there and saying, was there a comma in that or not? Anyway, I made it all the way through the Oprah show without stepping on my tongue. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. We're done. I walk up to Oprah, and remember, she said, stops me cold. I'll never again eat a burger. I said to her, hey, Oprah, give me 10 minutes. I'll get you off of chicken. She said, only one animal a day. So, before going on to that show, I had called a lawyer friend of mine in Seattle because I knew there was a thing out there that was called, food disparagement law. And I said to her, what's this food disparagement law? I need to be careful. I don't want to get sued. She said, let me look into it. She calls me back and she says, the food disparagement law is you should not say anything you know to be false about a perishable product. Piece of cake. I just told the truth. So I'm about my business. I get a call and he said, by the way, you're being sued along with Oprah, Harpo Production, by a group of Texas cattlemen. I said, how much are they suing for? He said, $180 million. I don't have $180 million. I shouldn't really worry. I go home and my wife says to me, she says, how much are we being sued for? I said, She said, what? I said, $180 million. She said, did you say $180 million? I said, yeah. She says, you realize that easily encompasses everything we have. And I said, well, we have a Ford Taurus. Anyway, I go to Amarillo, Texas for the trial. Now, Amarillo, Texas is not the end of the world, but it's clearly visible from there. 6 weeks we're in the courtroom. We hired a guy that you probably heard of, Dr. Phil. He was our consultant. Well, I really wasn't worried. I went on the show, I told the truth, I didn't violate the law. And Dr. Phil says, come on now, wake up. There's 12 people on the jury. They absolutely want to find you guilty. You go in there and defend the case on the facts. He said they're going to bring in somebody from Texas A&M and they're going to say, it's not that way, that jury's going to say guilty. He said the only way we're going to win this case is we have to defend the case on the right of free speech. He said we want that jury to sit there in the box and say, if we take the right of free speech away from Lyman and Winfrey, we're taking it away from ourselves. And that's exactly how we defended the case. And we won. A jury that was absolutely steeped in the cattle culture found Oprah Winfrey, Harpo Production, and myself not liable. Now the cattlemen, they weren't going to give up easy, so they turned around and sued us again. We had to go back into court and defend ourselves again, and we won again. They didn't give up, they went and sued us again. 4 times they sued us, and finally, after 6 years, the judge threw the case out with prejudice, which meant they could not refile it. But you know what it came about? Is we took an issue that less than 1/10 of 1% of the American people even knew about. And all of a sudden,
we had the majority of that 11% that we needed that knew about the issue of grinding up cows and feeding them to cows. They knew that there was something out there. And so we added on to that what Dr. T. Colin Campbell did, the China study. You know, the amazing thing about it, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's are growing astronomically. We cannot, we're spending billions of dollars. We cannot cure those problems, but we can prevent them. We have, in the front row, right over here, 2 young boys that are some of the luckiest folks in the world because from birth they've either been vegetarian or vegan, never have put all of that animal products into their diet. That's what we need to do. We need to make sure that the kids that are growing up have the opportunity to live a good, healthy life without spending all of their money on heart disease, cancer, diabetes, and Alzheimer's. Those things can be prevented. Let's not worry about curing them. Let's prevent it. We can do that. Today, as we're sitting here, there's over $594 million a year that's being spent to try to figure out why Alzheimer's is growing astronomically. My wife and I just happened to be down at Dr. Alan Goldhammer's fasting center, and there's something really interesting going on. The pharmaceutical companies today are absolutely in love with fasting centers because there is nothing in the world that deals with heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's better than long-term fasting. And the pharmaceutical companies, they're willing to spend big bucks trying to figure out why it is that fasting is changing the human clock on the diseases that are killing most of Americans. I don't care how much money they spend trying to figure it out. What we need to do is educate a lot of people to the fact that a good, healthy vegan diet, staying away from genetically modified foods, staying away from chemicals. I stand in front of you tonight. My wife and I have been married, I think, 47 years. We both have the same birthday. She is older than I am. She ripped me out of the cradle. I was a mere 29 years old. And I believe I'm approaching middle age. I talked to somebody the other day and I said to him, how old is middle age? He says, 10 years older than what you are right now. I can buy that, yeah. I'm never going to get middle age. But you know, our job right now is to fill our life with joy. It does not do any good to go out and stand on the corner and shout at people when they go by, "Be a vegan!" That does not work. I stand on the corner, I have my wife alongside of me. People drive by, I say, "She's a vegan." We need joy. We need to share with people that want to hear. It doesn't do any good to tell somebody something when they've got their thumb stuck in both ears. You need to wait around until somebody comes up to you and gives you that magic term and they say, "Are you eating a plant-based diet?" They've opened the door. It does not mean that you give them a 3-hour sermon. You've got a 45-second window of opportunity. And basically say to them, yeah, I've been on a plant-based diet now for over 25 years. My blood pressure, normal. My cholesterol used to be 300. The last time I took it, it was 105. One of the cattlemen told me one time, said, be careful, it might get too low. I said, eat your heart out. China, people, a lifelong plant-based diet, cholesterol, 65, 70. So when somebody actually says to you, are you eating a plant-based diet? I basically want to say to them, yeah. And boy, does it work for me. Not when you point at them, you have one finger pointed at them, 3 back. It's not about what you're telling them what they ought to do. What you want to do is tell them what it's done for you. I'm telling you, I'm saying, I went to my 25th class reunion, Great Falls, Montana. I was the only vegan in attendance, other than my wife. Nobody in my class, and 1/3 of them have already died. Nobody came up to me and talked to me about my diet until I went to the bathroom. I go into the bathroom, they sneak in and they say, you ever sneak out and get a burger? I said, nope. But you never saw so many canes, crutches, and walkers in all your life. This society is killing themselves with their fork. And it's not our job to save them. It's our job to save the planet. Do you realize, as we sit here tonight, 51% of all of the global greenhouse gases come from agriculture? 51%. We're talking about the president gets up and he talks at the State of the Union and he's talking about changing from fossil fuels. The fact of it is, there's more greenhouse gases that are coming from livestock than there is all of the cars, buses, trucks, and electrical generating plants on planet Earth. But nobody wants to talk about the truth. It's our job. It's our job to share the information with the people when they want to know. And there's nothing in the world that is more difficult than a family dinner. You have a family dinner and the first thing is all the hand wringing. Are you going to come and not eat the turkey? I mean, can you imagine what the kids are going to think about if you don't eat the turkey? You say, well, I'll tell you what, if you bring a live turkey and let him join the dinner, I'll come. I don't need to go and celebrate the death of an animal. I want to celebrate the opportunity when I look in the eyes of my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and say, I'm doing everything I can to make sure that you have a planet to live on when you grow up. And that's how dire it is. This week in the paper, it came out and they found that 2015 was the warmest year in recorded history. And guess what? The temperature of the ocean had doubled. There is today, as we sit here, there's more plastic in the oceans today than there are fish. I can't hardly wait for those trawlers to go out and start trolling for plastic. But let's do what we can do. The Northwest Veg, an amazing group. I don't know how many people they have touched. You know, they bring in somebody like John McDougall, and I love John McDougall. He's got a wonderful saying that I just love. He said, people just like good news about their bad habits. John used to have a radio show, and he infuriated the dairy industry so bad that they finally canceled all of his radio program. Many, many years ago, I was on the show with him, and I never saw an individual in my life that had greater recall. And there would be somebody who would call in and talk about some obscure issue, and John would say to him, I'm glad you brought that up. Now, if you take Lancet, in 1994, on page 1328, line 6, there was the answer to that question. People didn't want to hear that. John McDougall, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the great giants that has moved this world a step closer to where we need to go. Who knows? Who knows here in this audience tonight, someone that does not have the same potential? If you save somebody's life, if you save an animal's life, if you save the environment, if we slow down global climate change, those are the victories. I've been fortunate. I've made more mistakes than you can count. When I look at my life, and people want to give me plaques and honors and all this stuff, what they should say is that one of the dumbest SOBs that ever lived. This guy made more mistakes time after time. But let's not give up. Let's keep moving forward. You know, here we are. I never thought I would ever have the opportunity in my life to be able to go and cast a vote for somebody that I totally agree with. Can you imagine the fringe candidate that didn't have an opportunity in the world? He was just muddying the water. I mean, Hillary had millions and millions of dollars, and this guy, this guy wasn't even going to take PAC money. I mean, there wasn't a chance in the world. And here's a guy today that over 3 million people in the United States of America have given him $50 or less. He has almost equaled Hillary's fundraising without spending a dime. Without spending a dime. And what's he talking about? Some of the things that I always hoped when I worked on Capitol Hill that we'd have the opportunity that somebody would introduce a piece of legislation, you know, like single-payer health care. Wouldn't that be nice? How about free tuition? Wouldn't that be nice? How about a minimum wage of $15 an hour? How about men and women being paid the same thing for equal work? I never thought I would have the opportunity to vote for somebody like that, somebody that I've known for over 20 years. If somebody had said to me back when I was working on Capitol Hill, you know, the day is going to come that Bernie Sanders is going to run for president, I'd say, yeah, lots of luck. The only independent, and guess what happened today? One of the Republican senators, they were interviewing him and they said to him, what do you think about a race between Trump and Sanders? And this Republican senator said, well, if that's the vote, Sanders has got my vote. Let's not give up. because I truly believe that within my lifetime, the majority of Americans will be eating a plant-based diet.
The other day, I'm on the internet, I click on it, and it says, gas, 99 cents a gallon for unleaded gas. Where? Texas. Can you believe that? Wow. Things are changing. They're changing exponentially. We are seeing that water or wind and solar right now have more jobs than the coal industry. We're seeing right now that if we just change the light bulbs in the United States of America, we could close 1 out of every 4 fossil fuel generating plants just changing light bulbs. There's some amazing things that are happening. We are right now on the cusp of a new world. And what we have to make sure of is when those changes come, the changes include diet. They need to include the way we consider taking care of animals. My wife and I moved to Ellensburg, Washington. Best kept secret in the world. Great place to live. We're in the watershed of the Yakima River. Right over the hill from us, in the Yakima Valley, they have the largest concentration of concentrated animal feeding operations anywhere in the United States of America. And it was an amazing thing because the milk company was from California. California was forcing the dairymen to live within the clean air and clean water regulations. The milk company came up and looked at it and said, this is the ideal place in Yakima. I mean, the land is part of the reservation. Part of the land is deeded, and we can actually own land on the reservation without being tribal members. They went to their dairies in California and said, sell, make the big money selling your operation here in California. Come on up, and we will show you where there won't be any regulation, because the tribe is not going to enforce clean air and clean water on the reservation. And if the tribe doesn't do it, the county won't do it. And if the county won't do it, the state won't do it. And if the state won't do it, the feds won't do it. Come on up. This is a key to the vault. And they did. They sold in California and they moved up and they contaminated the groundwater so bad that over half of the samples that were taken, the water was unfit to drink. Nobody cared because most of the people that were drinking it were Hispanic workers, and nobody really cared about that. There was a group that came together and they went by the name of CARE. And what they did is they filed suit against the dairies, and everybody laughed. And guess what? They won. They won. They are forcing the dairies to go and double lot all of their lagoons. They're forcing the dairies to give bottled water to all of the people that live in the valley that cannot drink their own well water. They actually built a brand new school, and when they got done, they tested the water from the well at the school. They couldn't use it. They had to give the students bottled water. They drilled another well. They tested it. That was undrinkable. They're still giving them bottled water. The judge finally came back and said, there is absolutely no doubt in the Yakima Basin that the large confined animal feeding operations are contaminating the groundwater. A historic judgment. And it started because of a group of people just like you that would not roll over and play dead, that actually took the system, put it into court, and won. We can change the world.
We must change the world. If there is going to be a future for our children and grandchildren, it is going to be because we cared enough not to do everything, but to do everything we can do. The facts are on our side. The courts will implement facts. We are a lot closer to where we started out to go than anybody can imagine. And all I can say to you is thank you for what you have done for me over the years. Because the only thing I did was keep making mistakes